Honourable members, clause 1 of the bill is ordered to stand part of the bill.
All right, so that was all the controversy in Parliament. And guys, the truth is that the majority found a way to pass this bill. And I don't know if you get the whole brouhaha over the numbers, though, like 137, 136. People are wondering how the MPP were 137. I thought that's pretty simple to get, right? They have 137 MPs. There's an independent who goes for them. One MP is dead, so they have 186. If you add that independent to them, they have 137. NDC, on the other hand, have a guy who's not been in Parliament because of a court case, so they are effectively 136. So the other point about whether they use the head count or whether they use the division, I'm not really sure that's the point.
It's immaterial.
I think the point is that the one half of Parliament thinks that this is good for Ghana, and another half thinks it's bad. And somehow, it looks like majority of non-affiliated, or majority of reasonable people think that. Why is the NDC under the cosh even in relation to the ministerial approvals, right? Don't the MPs have members in their constituency who tell them that this is wrong?
You see,
why are we thinking it's only opposition that should stop this? Why can't the MPs say this is not a good thing at this time? The government should not do this. Why do they all support their government? That's the question we should be asking. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying how come NDC couldn't stop it? NDC is 136, and clearly all the NDC said voted, no, but they still lost. So whether it's division or whatever they call. I'm not even sure it's an issue here, But that seems to be the people are questioning. Oh, how come NDC couldn't get one more? Then MPP have a guy who's not well.
But where would the NDC get that extra MP? Because the extra MP
they are saying that the
has
MPP
been barred by court.
They are saying MPP shouldn't have 137 because there's a guy who's not well. Mm-hmm. I think the chieftaincy minister, we are told, is not very well. So we don't know how he even got into Parliament. Whether he was brought in. I don't know. And then there's the other one, and I'm going to do an interview on this shortly. So there's a report in what paper is this?
The Anchor newspaper.
Yes.
And other portals have it.
Richard Sky tweeted this as well.
Yes. So an MP, it turns out, was involved in a car crash on his way to Parliament. Mm-hmm. Now, the said MP is Mohammed Hadi Tuferu, who represents the Nanton constituency in the northern region. Mm-hmm. Now, the story says that on his way to Parliament, he got into a crash, so his vehicle ran into another one. Now, instead of being sent to the hospital or, sent for medical attention, he was brought to the house for purposes of the vote. Now, portions of the story quote MP for Boku Central, Mahama Yariga, and he granted TV3 an interview, and he went on to say that, his side, which is the minority side, did not see the MP, who's also a Deputy Minister of Food and Agriculture. But the information he got was that the MP had suffered a deep cut on his forehead. Okay, so
Richard Sky then tweets around that night that let me read the full tweet in relation to a photo from the accident scene, and then he says that the near fatal accident that reportedly sent an MP to the hospital, he left in an ambulance in the company of another. Given the numbers that were announced, was he counted as present and among those who have been voted? So let's work our way back. So there's the accident actually occurred on the GIJ road from the Absa Clubhouse towards GIJ. Mm-hmm. That road, which also has the Assemblies of God headquarters. Now, the person whose car was hit by the MP, we've called him up to tell us exactly what happened. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So what's your name, and can you tell us exactly what happened on Friday night?
Okay. So my name is Pabna. I work in Accra.
Okay.
I close from work. On my way home, I normally use the GIG route to join the main road through the Slabside house to Gold House to my house. So that is my normal route I've been using for the past 6-7 years. So on that fateful evening, same application, I closed and used the same route. So when I got to the Absa Clubhouse junction, which is a T junction, there was a couple in front of they got to the junction before I got there. So the guy turned left. We were all driving slow because that route, the road is not good. So you have to go slow. So when they turned into the left, then I also turned into the left. But apparently the witnesses around there claim that the MC was speeding. So immediately the couple turned, and they are my witnesses, and I also turned. By the time I said that, the car just ran into my car. That was when the whole thing happened.
So just explain this. The turn that takes you to the Independence Avenue, you were turning left, and this the MP was coming from where? The minister was coming from where?
He was coming from, I should think, the church.
Okay, so the road that takes you to the SDA church. He was coming from the north, as you say, and he was coming towards GIG.
Yes, I was moving towards the 10.
So you're going to make a left to join the Independence Avenue road.
Exactly.
So then which means he hit your passenger side.
Yes, he hit my passenger side.
What kind of car were you driving? What kind of car was he driving?
He was driving, I should think, a pickup after the accident, because I from bystanders and the witnesses, he was speeding. So I didn't really, because I got stuck in my car when he hit me. So I was a bit unconscious for a while. Then I started smelling something in my car. So I just struggled and pushed the door on several times. So I was able to come out. So when I came out, I stood at a bit dazed. And within a few seconds, I saw a lot of people coming around. They were shouting, "Of speed too much, of speed, there's speed." So that was when I regained a bit of consciousness, and I noticed that his car was a pickup.
Okay, so hold on. What time did this incident occur?
It occurred around 9 p.m.
Around 9 p.m.
Yes.
Around 9 p.m. So, were you alone in the car or somebody driving you? And do you know if he was alone in the car?
I didn't know, because it was when I came out of the car. I struggled coming out of the car. Before in fact, I was a bit dazed. So a guy stood in front of me and was telling me that, "Oh, I'm the Uber driver. I'm taking him. There's no call." I was like, where? So that was when I got to realize that he was moved out of the car.
I see. So just to be clear, your car and his car were both grounded after the accident.
Yes, please.
And he was sent by Uber. You were later told he was sent by Uber to wherever he was going. But
yes.
What about you? Did you go to? Were you sent to the hospital?
Okay. So my witnesses, which were the couple that got to the junction, slowed down and turned before I followed, were the ones that came, helped me out, pack my laptop, because I was close from work. So they helped pack my laptop and stuff into their car. So within a few minutes, the police a lot of police people were around, and there was this police officer from Parliament who said he worked in Parliament and that he was giving his number so that I called. So after that, my witnesses, the couple, took me to the hospital for a checkup.
So the people who were driving in front of you, the so-called couple, they took you to the hospital?
Yes.
But by the time you came out of your car, you didn't see the whereabouts of the person who drove into your car?
No, sir.
So how do you know that it was this MP or minister who was in that car?
Yeah, so after a while, I think they came and packed, they came and packed stuff from his car. So the couple went to the car and checked inside the car, and they found his complimentary card. So they gave it to me, and I snapped it. So that was when I got to
Okay, so they got into the pickup, took his complimentary card, and that's how you got to know that this was the deputy minister and MP driving the car, who was in the car.
Yes.
I see. So, but how the pictures I've seen show the cars quite badly damaged. What happened after his car hit your car? Did your car somersault? I mean, did he? Because I see broken glass and things. It looked like a very serious accident.
Yes. So when it hit, my car turned because I was taking the left. So my car turned and was facing it didn't somersault, but it turned and it was facing the clubhouse. So his phone somersaulted because everybody was shouting. The speed was too much. He was speeding. So everybody, a lot of people came out. So that was it. And after the couple took me to the hospital, they gave me some injections. Then we went to the police station. Then I was supposed to make a statement, but the officer was not there. So they asked me to come the following day to come and give a statement. But because of the injections that were given to me, on the Saturday, I was very weak. So the police called me and asked me to come. In fact, the police called me and was asking me I should describe what happened. I was like, I'm not in a good shape to describe what happened because I'm not feeling well. They told me, when I get well, I should come and write my statement.
So which police station were you sent to after you went to the hospital?
I was sent to Osu police station.
But which hospital were you sent to after the incident?
Volta River Authority Hospital, just not far from the police station.
So this is in Osu?
Osu, yes, please.
I see. So if we go to the hospital, verify that you were sent there after the accident, and you also went to the Osu police station after the incident, but they couldn't take your statement, you are saying?
Yes.
And you also said an MP a policeman from Parliament spoke to you. Do you remember his name?
Yes, he called, I think it's Better Freeman. So he even called me on the Saturday and check on me how I was doing. And I said, I wasn't feeling that well. They said, okay, if I'm not feeling well, I should just take my time, get well, then go to the police station and write my statement. And he even sent me another number of the MP. And I tried reaching out to him, but he was not. I called him, he didn't go through. I sent him a message, he didn't reply.
So we don't even know if he's well, because what you may not know is that from Parliament it was reported that he had a bad cut on his head. So we are not even sure which hospital he's in as well. So this looks pretty serious. Is your vehicle beyond damage, beyond repair? I've seen some photos. It looks pretty.
Yes. My colleague, I think, shared most of the photos. A lot of people took the photos and put it on social media. My car is beyond repair because the impact was so much, and I think he was speeding to the extent that I don't know. But it's God that saved me. Then I thank God for my life, because what I went through, if you see my vehicle, you will see that if it was God that really saved me, I would have been dead by now. And I would have been stuck in the car and nobody, I don't know. God just gave me some strength to push the door.
So at the time this happened, you didn't know there was anything happening in Parliament. You just were on your way home. So where in Accra do you work? You said this is your usual route. Do you work within the Osu area?
Yes, I work within the Osu area.
I see.
Around the Independence area.
And this is the regular route you use. Is you were saying, is the place well lit at 9 p.m. or was it dark?
Pardon?
Are there street lights on that road at night?
Yeah, there's a street light. That place, there's a street light.
I see. I see. So you are going back to the police station today?
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you for speaking to us, Governor. So this is a gentleman whose vehicle was hit, was involved in the accident, we should say. And I got people sending me photos and his number that they saw him at the scene, and I put him on the air. So this actually did happen. It says it happened around 9 p.m. and that he was rushed to the hospital, and apparently the MP, and I'm adding Sky's angle to this, that the MP was sent to Parliament in an Uber. So if you look at the pictures, there's a white pickup with a registration number there, which has somersaulted, right? And then this guy's car was like some Toyota with a badly mangled side. Now, that road doesn't look like a highway to have the level of accident that we've seen. So unless somebody was speeding. Now, this gentleman is alleging that the MP was speeding. We don't know if the MP was driving himself or somebody was driving him. But at least if you piece the story together, he probably got into Parliament whilst all the noise was going on and they found a way of. I don't know what you make of this. It's bizarre. So whilst we were on air monitoring this was happening.
Yeah, quite bizarre, and adding to the annoyance of people, general annoyance of people. First of all, let me just say that we are thankful that the two persons are alive.
Yes.
Yeah, very important.
We don't know the state of the MP though, because we haven't
received any
information about him. Yeah.
But he showed up if he was good enough to show up in an Uber in Parliament, take a vote and then leave later. I'm just hoping that he's good.
Because his car from the photo was
really bad.
Was on his head.
Yes. But I'm just saying, post the car being on his head, he went to Parliament on his own strength.
He was taken in an Uber.
Who took him in the Uber? Who called the Uber?
Maybe so. I don't know. We don't know whether and this guy obviously cannot confirm whether somebody was driving the car.
On that side. So there's still a lot of this. But the point is, he ended up in Parliament.
Maybe we should call Freeman Tete from Parliament to confirm.
Yes, exactly. He ended up in Parliament.
That the head of parliamentary police
showed up,
came there.
Yes,
and then called him the next day, which means that he's well briefed on the matter.
Which means it is a plausible assumption to make that Honorable Hadi Tuferu would have called Freeman Tete.
Or somebody in the area.
Or somebody with him.
Yes.
No, because a random person cannot just pick up a phone and call the person who runs Parliament security.
I get your point. You're right. So possibly
the person who called General MTT.
Yeah, you're right.
This was a direct call to Freeman Tete who came.
Which means that whoever called Freeman Tete knows that rules. This was an MP or was an MP.
And knows the rules.
I get you.
And
this was very close to Parliament
as well. So it will take Freeman Tete all of 5 minutes to get there with his people. So that aside.
Yeah.
But if you put all of the things that happened together on Friday, my honest thoughts on this, Bernard. You see, the two parties, they know what they are doing. We, the citizens, we don't know. But the two,
they know what they are doing.
They know what they are doing. And they should continue what they are doing. Whether it is good for the country or not, they should continue. Over the weekend, there was a lot of bashing of the NDC parliamentarians. Like, why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you do that? And people were like, why are you not asking the government that brought the taxes? Mm-hmm. Everybody is guilty in this. Everybody. And I'll explain, Bernard, if you allow me. Mm-hmm. When did we become aware of these taxes? As a general public. Oh, hold on, I'm coming. No, I'm with you here. Okay, go on. I recall it started making appearance in the newspapers about 2.5 weeks ago.
Yes.
You had, once it became public, you started making attempts to even get the documents to look at. You struggled to get the documents.
I got it later.
Yes, you got it much later. At your level. At your level.
I'm a small boy in the system.
So if you struggled to get it, how would the general public even get a whiff of this? When you were busily asking for information. Now, the reason why I have a problem with both sides is this. We all knew what was at stake with these taxes, what they meant. There was no talk about this from both sides. In fact, as of last week, you and I were asking the NDC, for instance, what was their position on the matter? As of last week. If you look at the engagements between the beverages people, AGI, if you can decide to check the timelines on those, who else was brought in? What kind of consultation took place? Where was the awareness for this? Right? Now, in that period, the headlines are dominated by other things. Okay? So we had LGBT happening. We had Kamala in town. We had EC in town. EC business in town. We had, are we going to meet IMF deadline or something? But these three taxes were never part of mainstream conversation.
Except on this radio
Except
station.
on this
and
radio
a few
station.
others.
Yes,
We were
and a few
making lot of
others.
noise
Yeah, I
about
was saying, we spoke about this. You spoke about
A lot.
you forced Humphrey
I even-
and Daki to send you
I did
their
an
position paper.
editorial on this.
Yes. Okay. So where was the general conversation around these three taxes? And that is where I'm saying the two parties know what they are doing. The MPP definitely would not have wanted any general engagement on this because they had been told we need this. If you looked at the narrative that was spun by the government and all the headlines that went with it, they were saying if we don't get this, we will die. Basically, if you don't, the economy is going to collapse. No MPP MP is going to go and say, I want the economy to collapse.
So they'll vote for it.
They vote for it. So they didn't even bother to even go and talk to people about it because they knew what they were going to do. Now, the NDC MPs also had that. Didn't really talk about it because they had other things that they were chasing at that time, which was approval of ministers, which seemed to occupy their attention publicly.
Yeah.
And they used, if you look at the groundswell that they moved on the ministers,
Yeah.
that time could have been better spent telling people about
The taxes.
the three taxes and building some momentum towards it. And we've seen them do it before, which is why perhaps a certain level of anger that we saw this for e-levy. We've seen this for LGBTQI+.
Yeah.
Why did we not see that kind of mobilization for these three taxes? And I'll tell you why you did not see it.
Why?
Because the NDC needed to have consensus on the Ghana card, which today, you look at your... Oh, Bernard, I'm telling you what I think.
So you are putting A and B together.
I'm putting A and B together. Add guarantor system. This has been the biggest headache of the NDC for the past 5 months. On any level, I've heard Chairman Esedun Ketia basically on every radio station in this country
Talking about this one.
talking about this when he talks. This has been his biggest concern. IPAC, they've written to Peace Council, they've written to every single body in this country on this matter. And we knew that when the conversation around the ministers were taking place, this was on the board as part of the negotiations.
You are suspecting that
They played ball.
You think so?
That is what I am saying, I'm thinking.
So it was like scratch your back, I scratch my back.
Yes, because so help us pass this. We'll do what we do.
So we'll go easy on the CI and allow the guarantor system to be brought in if you pass this bill.
Yes.
But if you look at the way they went about the whole thing, like calling for head count and the so-called division, and then this MP was rushed in.
You and I,
another MP was not well. They brought him, and all of this.
Bernard, I appreciate the drama around it, but this parliament is far too savvy.
So you are not buying.
I am not buying it at all. Some of the things that happen
Is the
are things that
NDC
cannot be
leadership?
planned.
Is the NDC leadership outside Parliament in on this, or this is purely Parliament?
I cannot push my assumptions that far. But all I'm saying is that if you look at the build-up of what has been important to the two sides in Parliament, the taxes have been important to the MPP. Guess what? Did they get passed or not?
They got passed.
They got passed.
The CI being amended for the guarantor system has been at the heart of the NDC for God knows how long. What happened?
They also got their
They
wish.
also got their wish over the same weekend.
So you're saying if the NDC really wanted to stop the taxes, they would have found a way?
I am saying that the interest of the two parties at that moment were different, and they both found ways of making sure that their interests were met. Pass taxes, move the CI. Because
No, but
hold
the
on.
other reason why people are upset is that they feel like there was even a claim that the MPP numbers were not even up to the 137. So, for example, we've said one MP is there, it's 137, right? Now, I just have in Parliament. We understand the Chief Executive Minister was not well, but was brought in. Tufero was involved in an accident. So, as at the time the voting was happening, he was probably now getting an Uber.
Yes.
All right. Then we are told that there's even an MP who's the deputy minister who's not even in the country. So how does a minority allow all of this? That's why they also blame the speaker. Anyway, we cannot verify this.
But that's
And
the
we are trying to get the minority side to speak to this, and I'm not even
that's
sure
what I'm saying.
what
I'm not
they're
going
saying.
to make any assumptions on that matter because, Bernard, if on a day you and I show up in Parliament and we go and mix, we even have the access and we go and mix and there's a vote, Bernard, MPs know who is an MP and who is not an MP.
So they can count. So if they wanted to be sure that they were counting,
they were
would have
counting.
found a way.
Bernard, They are telling me that parliamentarians cannot identify each other after 3 years, some 7 years,
so you are
some 8 years.
You are not buying any NDC.
I am just telling you what I see.
We have been tricked.
I am just telling you what I see. I will lay this at just politicians being politicians.
So they are taking us for a ride.
No, I don't think they are taking you for a ride. I'm simply saying that
they are playing a game that we are.
Their interest. There are interest, and that's something I've tried to outline the two most important things
to each party.
How many press conferences have been held about guarantor system? In fact, the day that the NDC organized a lecture about this, was it not the MPP, Richard Ahiagba or somebody who also organized a counter presser?
Yeah.
In fact, it was Osei Mensa Bonsu, if I'm not mistaken. It was Honorable Osei Mensa Bonsu who organized a whole press conference
on this
to explain why the EC had to do this.
Yes.
2 weeks ago.
Only for them to now agree that.
So where did this come from?
Wow. So listeners, Governor is saying that the NDC and MPP in Parliament
that's what they want to do.
They are trading horses.
They are politicians.
And they are doing that on our blind side, and we are buying this from them. And both sides have gotten what they want.
Happily.
The MPP government have managed to push through these 3 tax amendments, which the NDC opposed on paper. Right? They just didn't have the numbers based on their claim. Now there are claims that if they really pushed hard, they could have blocked this because the MPP didn't even have the right numbers. As we have seen, there was an accident that occurred around the time this was happening. Because again, if you're watching this, it was around from 8:30 all the way to 10 p.m. So it's possible that this accident occurred while the voice vote was even happening, and that he was later sent there.
Yes.
I'm even told that indeed when Sky was reporting this on Twitter, I was saying that he appeared to have a cut on his head.
Yes.
All right, before he was, I don't know whether he was sent into the chamber or to the washroom or wherever. But the question is, if somebody is bleeding like that, and you push the person to go and vote, it means that the government really wants to do this. All right, and the NDC too, they haven't heard any of them come out to organize any press conference to even say it's a disappointment that this has been passed. Maybe they are tired, or maybe they feel
because which is what I'm
or they know why it was passed, so they can't come and say anything.
Let's go online. Do a simple test, right? Type NDC plus Ghana card plus EC. Type.
There will be plenty stories.
And then type NDC plus the 3 taxes and see what you will get.
You get
the stories you will get to be over the weekend.
Yes, the Ghana card story is plenty. The other one, the EC one, the one you mentioned is not a lot.
It will come from the week. No, you will get a lot of stories, but they will be from the weekend.
But most of the stories are around the procedures.
Around it. Exactly. That's what I'm saying that. So in the way politics works, you should be able to identify what matters to a party at a certain point in time, what the position of a party. And I'm saying that at least I consider myself as being conscientious journalist in this matter. Yes. Now, with regards to the 3 taxes, as at last week, I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm not saying you are the best. You and I sitting here did not know the NDC's official position on the matter.
Yes.
In fact,
I just typed NDC 3 tax amendments into Google News. We heard our colleagues will help pass the 3 tax bills. We hope our colleagues will help pass the streets of upon Kroma. You are squeezing the dead with more taxes. Mahama 8 slams Kojo upon Kroma over past tweet. Prioritize passage of
that was on Saturday or Sunday after the thing was passed.
3 days ago, yes. Prioritize passage of revenue bills to help advance IMF. BOG urges Parliament. Nothing untoward was done in passage of 3 bills. Speaker. NDC sabotage IMF bailout. Peace FM online. So you are right. There's no position. But that's why I asked the question whether we should even be expecting the NDC to do this.
That's what I'm saying. That I think that this is just a clear manifestation of what politics is. Interest. What interests you? What interests me? Where can we meet ourselves halfway? And then also, what matters to the citizenry? Because, like I also said, the taxes should have been an issue 2 months ago. These are not new taxes, Bernard. When you've interviewed persons who told you that these taxes have been on the board for almost how many years now? You tell me.
Indeed, the amendments began, I think, 2022.
You tell me, 2022.
Yeah.
How come it has never been such a massive issue for everybody?
Yeah.
And then just 2 weeks ago, it was like, oh, taxes are coming. And I recall,
And
even you drew my attention
but I
to
actually
like,
said
there's
to you-
something happening.
I actually said that I felt that
I remember.
the NDC, if they had blocked the ministerial nominations, or if the fallout for the ministerial nominations had not been so bad for them, would not have had a problem with these taxes.
Which is what you said on Thursday.
Yes, so I am not surprised, and I predicted that they would pass it. I didn't know that it appears to be a quid pro quo in terms of you scratch my back, I scratch your back, which is what tends to happen. And the other thing I need to say to you is that a lot of MPs will tell you things behind the scenes, but I don't want to come on air on this.
Oh, we know.
And I find that strange because it tells you that Parliament's credibility in front of the public has been damaged. MPs are not sure, there's no trust among their ranks. So MPs are not sure if they'll be branded if an interview goes wrong. So members of Parliament, a lot of them are keeping mute on these very sensitive issues, right? And for me, Parliament is failing the citizens because at least represent us based on our aspirations. And if you can't, come and explain your actions to us, right? But don't hide behind Charlie Media. I don't want to put myself in trouble, so I'm not going to speak about this, right? It is so sad, honestly. Quick comments on the parliamentary developments on our WhatsApp feed.
Yep, some messages coming in. Danny from Oyarifa says, this MP and minister must be penalized. You got into such an accident and you left the scene with the person whose car you damaged and ran away to Parliament to pursue his selfish interest, if I should put it that way. Okay, he's not very happy with the MP. This one says, it's called a Jumashishe. That's what Godfrey is describing. Kekeli from New Longoro says, I'm tempted to agree with Godfrey with his assumption because this has been my thinking all this while since the bills got passed. This one says, please, what's the total number of votes for the minority and the
136 for minority, 137 for the majority.
The person says he doesn't agree, or he or she.
But if you add that,
agree.
that's 273. So there's 2 absent, 1 NDC Asin, and then 1 MPP who's died.
My position is the numbers are really much ado about nothing in my case. The way I see it, it's
The numbers don't mean
they don't mean anything. Okay, because the numbers will simply tell you NDC voted against it, MPP voted against it,
MPP voted for it.
voted for it. Have a conversation. But I'm saying if you put the 2 scenarios together, it tells you what obviously happened.
Yeah.
For me.
I get you. KTK from Asylum Down says, I agree with you, Bernard. When it seems our reps don't necessarily express the opinions and sentiments of their constituents, they live in a different reality. Until the child of the MP schools in a DA or cluster of schools, Ghana won't develop. Okay. This one says, everybody saying the minority cannot stop the majority from passing the amendment bills because of the numbers. But Bernard, wouldn't it rather send a strong signal had the minority won during the voice vote, considering that the speaker is from their side? The majority won on all the voice votes put up by the speaker, meaning they didn't shout enough. I think it should have gone down to the wire for the majority.
No, but if 275 people, you have 136 shouting yes and 137 shouting no or whatever, you can't really use your voice to distinguish. Let's go to Parliament and see if we'll get some help there. Samuel Nante George is MP for Ningo Pram. He's one known for speaking his mind. Samuel George, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Bernard. Good morning to your listeners.
Am I right if I feel like both sides of the house have failed Ghanaians? Because on the taxes, at least the sentiment I was getting from business community and listeners was that these were very inimical. And from the way your side allowed this to go through, it seems as if you didn't push hard enough. Can you defend your side's position on this?
Bernard, I know that you are one whose maths is very, very strong. And there is no way 136 can be greater than 137. And it would be unfair to the minority to suggest that we and the majority, which represents the ruling NPP, did not push back on this. We did. The majority were yes men for the government. But the report of the committee was not a consensus report. It had us in opposition to it. We argued it out on the floor of the House. And we called for a debate. And even when the debate happened, the speaker put the question and had a voice vote. And after the voice vote, the leadership of the minority called for a vote by division on some occasions, a head count. We put it through the entire gamut of what was within our rights and remit as members of parliament. The only thing we didn't do was to disrupt the House. And that's something I know that on the Citi Business Show, on the Citi Breakfast Show, you have been very critical of Parliament, that Parliament must not become a rowdy marketplace. And so that's the only thing we didn't do. If you accuse us of not disrupting the House, we're guilty as charged. But if it comes to everything, in fact, when it became clear to us that the counting appeared to have a problem, we raised it, our leadership raised it with Mr. Speaker, and questioned the fact that we were very well in the know that Jean Mensah was not in the House that day. She's the one who is known for cooking figures. We couldn't understand how the clerks at table would have also made such fundamental mistakes. Because you said you had 137.
No, I think that Jean Mensah comment was very unfair. Honestly, we are not discussing her here. To bring her in that manner is completely unwarranted. I think you should take that back and just continue. Honestly speaking, seriously.
Well, I respect your opinions, and you host the show, so that's fine. It's taking back. But I mean, everybody knows that she presented 6 different results in the 2020 election. So that's why I'm saying that when people make mistakes with figures, you can use Jean Mensah as a reference point, because she's done that in the past.
No, not in this, on this platform, in this discussion, because it doesn't arise.
Let's not belabor the point. The point I'm making here is we raised the fundamental issue, and I'm just making all of this point to rebut the presumption you made in your question that the minority acquiesced in the imposition of this draconian and unnecessary taxes. Because if we acquiesced, we wouldn't have gone through the votes. We wouldn't have accounted for our 136. We wouldn't have challenged what appeared to be an error in counting on the side of the table, clerks at table. Because when they did the count, at the very least, we're all aware now that at the time the first vote was taken, the Honorable Ahmed Hadi Tuferu was not in Parliament. We're also aware that there were about 2 other members of Parliament who walked in after the clerks at table had finished counting them, the majority side. So clearly that vote should not have read 136, 137. But be that as it may, the Speaker only announces what it is that was presented to him. Our majority...
So whose mistake was it in this 137? Was it the people who counted wrong heads as part of what they were counting, who fed the speaker the wrong information? Was it the whips who were unable to verify? Because I'm sure in the counting, in every voting county, there's an agent, right? So whoever was your agent there when they were counting...
No, in this one, there was no agent. Because, you see, in this one, the way it is, it's even difficult for the whips to do a count. Because normally when the whips are doing a count, they stand up and do a count for the other side. But right now, what the speaker's ruling or directive was all those who voted aye in the voice vote should rise. So everybody who is rising will be counted, whether you're on the majority side or minority side. And so it then presupposes that when in that particular vote, the minority had voted aye. So we all stood up, our 136 stood up and were counted. If anybody from the MPP side had stood up that they were also trying to count us, the table clerks would have counted them. And so in the same vein, when the nays were being counted, which is the my majority side, our whips could not have stood up. And I mean, when you're sitting and the whips of the other side is standing, it becomes difficult for you to be able to tell line by line and row by row. But that's the job of the clerks at table. They went in there, they have a question to answer as to how they managed to get 137. And if you remember, we've had an instance where the speaker, we had to insist. I think that was when Haruna was leader. We insisted that the finance minister be walked out of the chamber when we're going to take a vote. And the same thing repeated itself on Friday, where the finance minister remained in the house, where there were other ministers like Esiama, the transport minister, also in the chamber. And this is why we've always said that at times, when we ask that ministers should be cleared from the floor, It is not a means of disrespecting or belittling their officers. But there's a reason why our standing orders say that the lobby must be cleared.
No, I get that point.
I won't place the blame anywhere else but the table office.
No problem. I don't understand the difference between the so-called head count and a division. But some people say to me that if the minority in their protest over the voice vote, if the minority had opted for a division, it would have been easier to identify the fact that some MPs from the majority side were not in the house. But as the speaker said, a head count is a counting of heads. So you can put a head of a minister there instead of an MP, and if the person counting is not minded to check if this is an MP's head or a minister's head, they will still count them. Now, any explanation as to why the minority leadership opted for the head count as against the so-called division?
Oh, okay. So again, let me just do the distinction between a head count and a division. A head count, all those who voted aye rise. They are counted, the heads are counted by the table office, and then all those who voted nay stand in their seats, and then the counts are done, and that's tallied. When it comes to a division, all members of parliament, the lobbies are cleared, and all members of parliament are moved out of the chamber. And then two particular doors of the chamber on both sides of the aisle are opened. And when a name is called, you walk in, and then you are counted. So that's a much more detailed and lengthier process. I will concede that one would say that if you wanted to go the full hog and go all the route, you'd have opted for a division. But that would be to presuppose that we do not trust our table office in Parliament to do an effective head count. Because at the end of the day, a division is simply a head count, but this time done with members coming in individually.
So a division is a head count with verification.
More like that.
And I'm sure your intelligence, and I mean when I use intelligence in the sense of knowing what the other side is up to, would have known that some of the MPs from the majority side were either not in the house or were on their way to the house. So a division would have been probably a more effective method of winning than just the head count, because as we have just been told, the MP for Nanton was involved in an accident on his way. We understand another MP is not very well and that he probably was brought in from the hospital. In fact, there are allegations that there's a third MP who was not even in the country. I'm not sure of that. So all these things are flying around, and you would have known better than us the condition of the opponent's side. All right. So if people say, in fact, let me just go straight to the point. People feel like the minority did not really oppose this until they lost the vote on the ministers, and that if the minister thing had been successful, you probably have passed this anyway, and that the only reason you even showed last minute opposition to this was because Ghanaians were angry with you because you passed the ministers, and therefore you are doing some last minute shaggy things to show that you were upset with this. And when the MPP dangled the CI in front of you, you swallowed it and said, okay, you amend the CI the way we want, we'll also give you your thing, we'll all make some noise, we'll blame the speaker, and then we'll all live happily ever after.
That's a lot of conjecture, and I wouldn't want to engage in that conjecture. There's a lot of conspiracy that can grow with some of these things, but the point that we must make is this: we had questions. I mean, there were several times whilst we're preparing for the head count, a member will say this person is not around, and you quickly do a quick scan, and you find out that that person was sitting on another person's chair. Because, in the chamber, we all know where everybody sits. And so you look in a particular direction, you don't see somebody, and you say, this person is not around, and you realize, for example, Asenso was thought not to be in the house, but we realized he was sitting elsewhere, and he had done a swap. Okay? So it's difficult in a heated moment, and don't forget that this was happening at past 10 p.m. in the night. And so, Bernard, we were livid when it came to our notice that there was empirical evidence, clear-cut evidence, that two members of the House were not present at the time the division was done, or the head count was done. I remember very well the Deputy Whip, Honorable Ahmed, MP for Banda, stood up and raised the issue with the Speaker. But unfortunately, the Speaker ruled that the exigency of time and the vote had been declared, and so there was nothing he could do about it. But for me, It goes to the efficiency of the processes and why many times some of us have spoken about why Parliament must go so late in the night. Don't forget that the table office staff are also human beings. And they've also been there from morning. And at times you go and sit in that house. We sit in the house from when the meeting is called. Government doesn't bring any business till the last day. Even on the last day, you don't have government business come from 10 a.m. in the morning. They bring it at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. It's intentional because they want to take the lapses of human abilities that come in when fatigue sets in.
Right.
So, look, our position on this tax measures is well articulated and well stated. That we're against it and we do not support it in any way. We think it's inimical to business, and we think that government is making more savings from the debt exchange program and does not need this about 4 billion that they are going to make from this tax handles when they are making about 43 billion from the debt exchange program. And that's why we're opposed to it in principle.
Okay, am I asking too much if I say that when I compare the advocacy from both the party, I'm talking about Abraka, and then the Parliament, when it came to the minister's approval, in terms of statements that were sent out, newspaper stories and all of that, I didn't see the same level of interest or advocacy from the opposition party or the MPs on this one, which arguably would cost Ghanaians more. Because if you look at 6 ministers, how much are they being paid for the period that they'll be in office compared to the 2.5% tax on all companies' profit before tax, 1% of all revenue of turnover for petroleum, upstream and mining companies, plus 5% tax for 70 or 15 categories of companies. So if you are really interested in the public purse, one would have thought that this is a more serious fiscal issue than even the ministerial nomination. Yet we saw more agitation, more interviews, more press releases from the party and the MPs on the approval than on this one. So it's not even about what happened in terms of the division and all that. There's a general sense that the NDC was ad idem on this matter.
Well, Bernard, I know that the MPPs are paying to try and find a witchcraft meat on this one, but unfortunately it won't wash because we didn't introduce a tax measure. We are not in government. We didn't introduce a tax measure. We don't have a majority in Parliament to stop it when they have their numbers, even though in this instance, in the first instance of the vote, the first bill that was tax measure that was taken, it's proven that they didn't have the numbers, but then somehow they managed to get the table office to be convinced that they had 137. But the point must be made that, again, you've made reference to the kind of backlash that occasioned the votes that happened 2 Fridays ago. And I'm sure that, I can't speak for Adabraka, but I'm sure that everybody's looking at how communication is done such that you don't have the kinds of ripples that characterized what happened on the previous Friday. There was clear direction. What I can state on authority is that the party, Adabraka, the party office, gave clear direction to Parliament. It may not have been public. It may not have been publicized. That's a matter of strategy for Adabraka that I can't speak to. But as a member of Parliament, I got clear directions on how to vote on every single question that the Speaker put. That directive was issued by the National Chairman and the General Secretary. It was reiterated by the Minority Leader through the whip, Kwame Abuja, and the 2 whips. At every point in time on Friday, you had both Kwame Abuja, Ahmed, and Doyo walking through the aisle to ensure that every member of Parliament on our side was added them and ensuring that we toed the line that the party had issued. As to the mode of communication of that, I can't speak to that. That's Adabraka's decision to make. But as to if a directive was issued, which was to oppose those tax measures, we got that loud and clear in Parliament, and we told that line.
So just finally, what is the state of the minority front bench?
I don't understand the question. When you say what's the state, what do you mean?
In terms of how resolute they are to lead the minority in critical decisions, in terms of how united they are, in terms of their credibility with the backbenchers. Basically, how healthy is the minority front bench following all that we've discussed for the past 2.5 weeks?
A true test of leadership is adversity and how you handle and manage adversity. I have absolutely no doubt in the ability and tenacity of Atuforsen and his team, Boa, Abuja, Ahmed, and Doyo, to continue to lead and show leadership. I mean, in the aftermath of Friday, when we came to the house on Tuesday, there were several meetings that were held. We had an expanded leadership meeting, of which I was part of, and I must commend Atuforsen for the kind of leadership and the tone of that meeting. It was not a blame game meeting. It was a meeting that said, this has happened, we need to own it, we need to move forward, what is the way forward? And from that meeting, the various caucuses took a cue, went and had our regional caucus meetings to deal with the directive that had been given from our leader. And that is how come you saw on Friday 136 being accounted for. In fact, there were people who had been officially sanctioned to travel by Parliament and by the Speaker, but on the directive of the leadership, returned from those official trips or declined the official engagement that had been approved by the Speaker. So that tells you that the caucus is solidly united behind our leadership. They are the leaders we have, they are the leaders we will work with, they're the leaders that will lead us into the 2024 elections and help us deliver both parliamentary and presidential victory. I'm confident that these ripples happen, and it's good that some of these things happen early on in the tenure of a leader. It allows you to recalibrate and reorient yourself, and I think that we're in a good place as a caucus.
Thank you for your time, Honorable Samuel George. He's MP for Ningo Pram Pram, and he has been the defender position of the minority on this. I want to go to the majority side and speak to Honorable Habib Idrisu. I think he's the deputy majority chief whip. So these whip positions are very, just to clarify, so a chief whip is really the one who rallies the troops when it comes to all major decisions. They also look after the welfare. So they actually it's like, how do I put it? It's a very important position. You know, we sort of downplay that. We look at minority leader, majority leader, and deputy leaders, but the whips are very important,
key, yeah.
Particularly on things like this. So, Honorable Idrisu, thanks for joining us on the show. First point, why did all 136 MPP MPs and the independent candidate or MP who supports the majority, why did you all vote for these tax bills? Because a lot of Ghanaians are not happy with this. Yet you seem to vote for what the government wants. Was there not even one person on your side who thought that this was a bad idea?
Bella, good morning. But the point is that the revenue bills that were passed on Friday are not new to Parliament. I said so because when we were passing the 2023 budget, these were the revenue measures to finance the expenditure of the budget. Our colleagues in the minority and ourselves passed the budget. Our colleagues in the minority and ourselves passed the appropriation. So if you pass a budget and pass appropriation, and you don't want to pass the revenue measures to finance the budget, what are you trying to tell Ghanaians? It means that you are passing a budget telling Ghana government that, okay, I've passed a budget, but they don't go and take money. And if you look at where we are at the moment as a country, our tax to GDP is still somewhere around 13-14% in Ghana. We are still doing inadequate. We need to pay our taxes so that government will be able to use that to finance its program and its projects. So literally, we supported this budget, this revenue bill because, one, it was part of a budget we passed where we supported and passed in principle. We supported it because it was incorporated in an appropriation that we participated and passed. So it was just right for us to be able to give the spending authorities the opportunity for them to get that needed amount of money they need.
But Honorable, you agree with me that you can have a policy document approved broadly as a budget. You can even agree generally to taxes, but the design of the tax you can change. All right. So if, for example, the private sector, the FABAG, and all these groups, the GUTA, are saying that the design of particularly the growth and sustainability tax, the fact that the 2.5% in the third schedule affects all companies, you can say, yes, we agree that government should finance this budget with taxes. but you can still disagree with the tax measure, i.e. the law. So the fact that the minority agreed to pass the budget does not mean that every specific tax proposal they should support. Do you get my point? And if you listen to the debate from the private sector, they've not said that the budget is bad. They are saying that the specific taxes that you are imposing is going to damage businesses. So the question about if nobody, and particularly because the MPP is the party supposedly of business, you are the right of center party, you are the private sector party, right? And you are the guys now taxing us with all kinds of taxes. So you can't say that because we've approved the budget, they should support every tax policy, irrespective of how damaging it is to the businesses.
But let me make a point clear, and it must be well understood and taken that I don't want to say it, but I have to just say that what our colleagues in the minority exhibited on that Friday with regards to the revenue bills was hypocrisy to the highest order. Hypocrisy in the sense that if you look at the bills, the report that came from the Finance Committee, it was agreed. The reason why it was not passed the time we were passing the appropriation bill was that we said we were all tired. But at the committee level, which is represented by the minority, all agreed in consensus. It was a consensus decision from the committee that these revenue bills must be passed. Only for leadership to be changed, and then we resumed back to Parliament, and they took a different decision and said that even what we agree, we are going to disagree it on the plenary. And that was exactly what was going on. If you want to look for a copy of those revenue bills that came from the Finance Committee, before it was being laid in Parliament to first, second stage, and third reading to the Constitution stage, with them opposing. They did not oppose it at the committee level. They did not. So what are we talking about here? And that report was ready in our last meeting, before this session meeting that we had. So in effect, you have agreed to something at committee level, then we could not do the revenue bill due to time constraint that day. We were all tired, just like we couldn't do the Supreme Court judges one, because that one too was ready. But that night we were tired and we could not take it. And then we left it like that. So it should not be misconstrued, or it should not be the case that they never supported the revenue bills at the committee level. They supported the revenue bills at the committee level. And the committee came with a consensus decision. But they against it in the preliminary because they had gone and said that, a sound minority in terms of disagreeing with government policy is part of the democracy. But what I'm saying is that it must not be the case that they never supported it. They supported
so you're saying that the Ayariga sponsored amendment. No, I'm coming. No, I understand you.
Our voting for it is we are also representing constituencies and people. And when I look at their argument, they said that people and their constituents are saying they should not support it, and for that matter, our constituents and our people are also telling us that we should also support it. So when we vote,
your constituents are not telling you to support it. So, for example, the largest opposition to this has come from Guta. Guta has members predominantly from Swami Magazine and Abose Okai, right? You cannot tell me that for an MP of Swami to say that his constituents say he should pass this, when Guta has come out clearly, and Guta is a very large group of importers and traders, right? You cannot tell me that.
And that's the majority leader's constituency.
Yes. So you can't tell me that the majority leader was doing what his constituents wanted.
I can tell you that he equally was not acting what the constituency doesn't want. Is it the case that the constituency doesn't want government to be able to get money to finance his budget?
No, that's not what the government. The constituents are saying that there are other ways of raising money.
It is good we change the narrative. We have to change the narrative in Ghana, where we have to be able to look at each other's faces and say that, look, we are not doing enough when it comes to tax to GDP. We are not doing enough when we come to commitment as a citizen. Taxation is, if you, the only person you don't want to offend in the Western world is a taxman. Very difficult, or very have dying consequences even than the police or the judges. So the most important thing we need to do as a country is where we are at the moment. We are in trying and difficult moments. We have to burden share. We have to be able to raise expenditure to finance the budget. And I'm saying that if we were not able to pass these 4 revenue bills, how are we going to finance the 2023 budget?
Well, I'm sure we have a whole discussion on that. Let's go back to what happened on Friday. There is a strong view that at the time the voice vote was taken, when Mr. Speaker said the ayes have it, at least one of your members of parliament was not in, because it would later emerge that the MP for Nanton had been involved in an accident around the APSA clubhouse on the way towards GIJ. And this accident occurred around 9. So he probably got to parliament after the voice vote had been taken. And in fact, we are told that he was not even in a good shape enough to be on the floor. All right. So as whip, I'm sure you know about this. And now a couple of questions here. Even two things. If he was not there when the voice was being taken, then that's deception. Number two, even if he was there in the condition that he was, are you not endangering a man's life over this matter? Because from the narration we saw and the state of the cars involved in the accident, the first place that man should have been rushed to was the hospital, not to the floor of parliament.
Bernard, if anybody is telling you a story with regards to the accident of Nanton, that person is giving you a story. I'm a government whip. Part of my job is to get my numbers to execute government business. Part of my job is for the welfare of the MP. And for that matter, if anybody is telling you that the time we took the voice vote, the Nanton MP was not in the chamber, it is never the case. If anybody is telling you that we did not care about the welfare, about the Nanton MP, it is not actually true. You could even see that when the NDC actually wanted to make a case, I think Honorable Ahmed was on his feet, and he said that the education minister was not in the chamber the time the voice vote was taken. The Honorable, it must be on record that the Honorable Member of Parliament for Nanton was in the chamber the time the voice vote was taken. Probably I should be able to reveal something that I am speaking for the first time about it on Citi FM. And that has to do with the fact, look, that day, the Nanton MP was in the chamber in the morning when we went for a suspension. All the Muslims in Parliament, they break their fast in my office. So he was in my office and we break our fast. After we break our fast in my office, then he said he was going to see somebody and come back. So when he was coming, then he had an accident. The time they gave you about the accident is not true. I was involved. In fact, I got a motorbike to get him and bring him to the time we were going to take the voice vote. He had come. Then I put him in the washroom. I'm revealing this. I was the one. When he was coming after the accident, I received him. I didn't make him enter the chamber. I put him in the washroom. Then they brought the nurses from Parliament and the doctor. In fact, to cross-check this, you can call Dr. Kisi, who is the member of Parliament for Anyaso Utuom. I called him into the washroom. Majority Leader came. The nurses in Parliament and the doctors in Parliament were there to attend to him in the washroom. Because of the voice vote, I said I didn't want him to come to the Parliament clinic. Mind you, Parliament has a hospital or a clinic. So he was there. He had minor bruises in his face. So they cleaned it up. And even to stitch that thing, the minor bruise close to his eye was stitched in Parliament in the washroom.
Oh, so I'm coming. You are saying they stitched. I'm coming. You said they stitched. No. I'm just trying to clarify something. No, you are saying it was a minor bruise, but do you stitch a minor bruise?
No, definitely. If my diction there is not right, then I will rephrase it and say that they needed to stitch some part of it. So what happened was that the doctors and the nurses came in there with Dr. Kisi. So when they cleaned it up, when we were going to do the voice vote, he came in there and it was done. And when it was done, then we came back. Then he was there again resting. And then he came back again when we were going to do the other voice voting. Then he did the voice voting. Then Dr. Kisi advised that, okay, because it was an accident, now we have checked all his vitals. Everything is fine. He's good. He's conscious. He's talking. He's walking. He's everything. But we should send him to Eurocare to be able to do a scan on his head and his shoulder to see if it is okay. Then I informed the speaker about the incident and told the speaker that I was arranging an ambulance to take him to do the scan and bring him back. So I arranged the ambulance. The ambulance came to the premises of Parliament. I walked with him to the ambulance. And the speaker said that Kwame Agoja should follow me and then Jetro, who is the deputy clerk, to the ambulance. and watch whether he was the one in the distance so that he can go to the hospital to do the scan. So that when we are doing further things, he can be counted because he's at the premises of Parliament. So myself, Kwame Agboja, and Jethro went into the ambulance. I have a video of it because I took a video for evidence sake, and we went in there. So you could even see that on the floor of Parliament, after we've done the third bill, Kwame Agboja was in his speech to let Speaker know that the last voting that we did, Speaker should let us know if somebody was engaged in something. Invariably, he wanted to just make the case that, Honorable Hardy was sent to do a scan and be brought back. And when he went and did the scan, there was nothing wrong with him. Right. And as I speak, he's in Tamale, and all what they are saying is actually not true.
I was going to ask if it's okay. You are saying he's in Tamale is okay now, so we are grateful to God for that. I spoke to the guy whose car was hit by the MP's car this morning, and he's also doing well, although his car has been badly damaged, but that's a different story. But what is fascinating about what you just described is the fact that he had to be stitched in the washroom of Parliament. Now, the little I know about the stitch is that that means the guy had a cut, possibly a deep one. So if Dr. Adumako, who's a doctor, made the judgment that he should be stitched in the washroom, that suggests that the man probably should have been in the hospital when this incident occurred and not in a parliamentary toilet.
What I'm trying to tell you is that when he came, he was assessed by not less than 3 doctors, but not less than 5 nurses and everything. So the decision was taken. His life was not in danger. His life was not in anything. He was conscious. He was okay. There was nothing medically. They had examined him and they thought that was the best decision. Definitely, we will never put our person in this danger, because it is something we have. When Honorable Baswa, may his soul rest in perfect peace, was not in a good condition, we left him in there, and the majority leader made it clear that he's unconscious or his state, he could not come to Parliament on that Friday that we were voting the ministers to be able to participate in that. So definitely we care about the welfare of our MPs. Definitely we care about their well-being, their health, and other things. And we will not jeopardize that. Neither will we gamble on the life of anybody because we want to be able to.
Thank you so much. And clearly you've done well in terms of helping a colleague MP, which we need to commend you for. But I just wanted to check. There's 2 other comments about the fact that one MPP MP was not even in town. In fact, it's alleged, and I've not proven this, that Ejapa Mensah was not in town. And also, there's always a question about the state of the chieftaincy minister in these votes. The ex-chieftaincy minister, the Honorable Kojo Kum, that he's probably not in a condition that even allows him to participate in parliamentary procedure properly. Yet he's wheeled in to vote or to make up the numbers for these votes. I mean, as a whip, this seems to be so. Deal with the Ejapa Mensah matter for me first, and then the issue of Kojo Kum and how he's consistently brought in to make up the numbers, even though we are told he's not in a state that allows him to even take part in the parliamentary discussions.
It must be noted that it is never true that Ejapa Mensah was not in the chamber. In fact, he was in the chamber. That day he was wearing a black shoe, a black pants, and a cloth, an African print top, of which there was a bit of a yellow thing in there. Go and check the video in Parliament and check that day proceedings. Definitely you see Mensah going around. It is never true that Mensah was not there. Mensah was there. And you see, with the case of Kojo Kum, even before any voting, he started coming to Parliament. He sits there, and when he sits in Parliament, he has been able to participate. He has moved several times for us to be able to get him. You see, when somebody gets out of a certain state and he has problems and he comes to Parliament and also wants to be actively involved, at times we have to move either a motion or we want to lay a paper on behalf of a certain minister. If the minister is not there, even before any voting, Kojo Kum have done that. Honorable Kojo Kum have done that. I'll call him and say, the minister, I want you to get up and lay this paper. So when he mentioned it, he will get up and bow and sit down. So it is not the case that he is not fit, he cannot be in Parliament, and we are actually forcing him to be in Parliament. Whether we are voting or we are not voting, if you look at the record, the state date he has started coming to Parliament, check the voting proceedings, he has never absent himself in Parliament.
Fair enough.
So it is not the case because of the voting that he came. And Mensah was in the chamber, Mensah was there the day before, and Mensah has not been there. Mind you, we have issued a train line whip, not today, to ban all our MPs from traveling. So that there was no way any MP could travel. 3 weeks to this decision day, we have already issued a 3-line whip and told them the day we are taking the decision, and no member of parliament must travel. So nobody traveled.
Finally, there is, and again, thank you for your time in terms of answering all the questions. There's another view, and this is my final question, by the way, that the ECCI issue was what your side used to, I don't know whether to threaten or to convince. I'm not sure what word to use, but when the NDC persisted in the attempts to get either a division or a headcount, we are told that the MPP sort of leadership dangled the fact that, look, this EC thing that we have decided to back down on, if you push and you block these taxes, we will also push the CI in the form that it is in. So it's like you scratch my back, I scratch your back. So you people use the CI point to force the NDC to agree to the revenue bills.
No, it is never the case. The CI, as it was presented and as was discussed and everything, stand in the position of the majority. And we, the whips, have communicated to our colleagues that was the position of the majority caucus. But mind you, if we had agreed with them that the CI, they have to come to compromise and other things for this to be used on the revenue bill, why are we having headcount? Why were we voting at every now and then? I think we voted about 3 or sometimes where they would do headcounts and other things. Why would we have to do that? Because that day we were in majority. We were 137. They were 136. So if it comes to any food to shelf, we will definitely beat them in any vote that we were going to do. So it is never the case. What is actually reflecting in the CI was the position of the majority. And that was the decision that we have taken by them. And it has nothing to do with any...
So your position on the CI... Because when I heard Majority Leader 2 weeks ago on the CI, he seemed to agree with the EC. But for now, it looks like you've agreed with the NDC that the Ghana card should not be the only form of identification, that we should add a guarantor system. That seems to be a shift, because the last time I heard the Majority Leader speak on this, indeed, the MPP and the EC were on the same side until a Friday night.
Okay, but if I might throw a bit of light, technically we haven't moved from the position the Majority Leader was standing. We were only being rational, we were only being reasonable, and we were being considerate. The fact that about 1.2 or 1.4 million Ghanaians haven't been issued their cards, and the fact that we are very convinced that the NIA have the capacity now, they have released the cards that they wanted, because the finance minister has released some 100 million through card bank for their cards to be released. Now the question is that if this money is released and these cards are given to NIA, and they are able to print this thing to and give the cards to those 1.4 million. Who are they guaranteeing for again? You have the card, you have the option. If you come, the Ghana card is there. If you have it, why will you have to bring a guarantor? Because the contention was the fact that some people who are within that voting, voting age have had their cards or they have been registered, but their cards haven't been issued out. So if NIA in the next 3-4 months has been able to give everybody the card, and you go to do a continual registration, you produce your card. It is not the case that you have to always use the guarantor when you have the card. There's no need. So we are convinced that our position hasn't shifted. We are only being reasonable. We are only being rational and considerate. And we are very convinced, without reasonable doubt, that the NIA would be able to issue those cards to those who are within the voting limit. And when that is done, nobody will even need to use the guarantor anymore.
Thank you for your time, Honorable MP for Tolon and Deputy Majority Leader Habib Idrisu, speaking to us there. 9:28.